10 seconds to go. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to participate on this very important discussion. First of all, I am very glad that under the 12th 5-year plan, the government wants to start junior technical institutes, but so far the education department is not in a position to know what type of junior technical institutes are going to be established in the country. Whenever we ask the education department to furnish us with details of their schemes, the reply we get from the education ministry is that some officer of the department has been sent abroad to study this question, and only when he returns from abroad they will be able to finalize the thing. An officer of the education department has been sent to study these institutions in France. But the reply that the education department has given is that he could not study the entire scheme and he wants some other officer to be deputed to study. As I said before, under the 12th 5-year plan, we are to start junior technical institutes, but so far the education department is not in a position to give even the correct information to those private agencies which are there ready to start these schools. Therefore, I request the education department not to sleep over things but to take very active steps in collecting the necessary information and in helping the private agencies who want to start these institutions in this country. I know our people are suffering because they have been given a very defective type of education. Today, we have to depend upon the reservations. Whenever any vacancy occurs in a department, even if it is reserved, that vacancy is not filled by a scheduled caste man. Naturally, this type of education will not help a candidate to choose any other profession except to depend upon government establishments. Therefore, it is necessary at least to see that the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes do not depend upon the reserved services. They must be given technical education. For this purpose, the education department will have to spend enormous money. I do not want the government to simply waste money in propaganda against untouchability. This is a real step which should definitely improve the conditions and make the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to be independent without being dependent upon the government services. Therefore, I would like the Home Ministry to give special directives to all the state governments in this regard. I know that in some of the state they have started special schools when they felt the need, because in many of the other institutions the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes were not allowed in those days. At that time, there were many states which had started special schools to cater to the needs of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Now, when the government is not able to give the reserved vacancies to them, it is very necessary that these technical schools should be started so that the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes can be made independent and can prosper in this country. Sir, I join my friend in expressing satisfaction at the fact that the national income has recorded an increase of 18%, perhaps 7% more than the estimated increase. But I do not find evidence of this in any visible increase in the standard of living in the villages. I would like to know from the finance minister if this increase in national income is reflected in the general living of the people. I want to know whether they have tried to find out this either by any sample survey or by any other method. We should know whether the benefit has reached the common man. As far as I am concerned, my own experience is that unemployment in the rural areas continues to be as high as it was before if it has not recorded any increase. One way by which we can find out this is by the number of persons crowding around public servants or public men for some sort of recommendations to get jobs. In urban areas, the extent of unemployment is judged by the registrations in the employment exchange. I do not suppose there is any such device for the rural areas, and I think our experience can be depended upon to some extent for finding out the extent of unemployment. This leads me to feel that even though there is an increase in national wealth, the benefit is not going to the common man. Therefore, I feel that we should bring about a very drastic change in the properly relations if we are really keen on realizing the socialistic pattern of society, the sooner we change the property relation, the better it would be for the country. I believe the proportion in which the accumulated wealth of the nation is held by certain classes determines the pattern of production to a large extent. The pattern of production determines the pattern of distribution. Therefore, we cannot secure distributive justice unless and until there is a change in property relations. We have therefore abolished the sanctity attached to the properties and we have made compensation payable to the affected people. Sir, I rise to speak a few words about the broadcasting policy of the government. During the last general elections, the government found that it would not have been possible to provide such facilities without inviting criticism of unfairness and partiality from one group or the other. However, after the elections, the government has given careful thought and consideration to the matter. Practices prevailing in other democratic countries of the world have been studied and compared. It is very well to remember that examples of other countries that can be cited in this regard are not uniform and are based on conditions which differ altogether in many important respects from country to country.